This is Javed Muhammad, a local Muslim activist from Prayagraj and a member of the Welfare Party of India. He was arrested on June 10, 2022, accusing him of being the mastermind behind the violence in Prayagraj, which erupted after the then BJP spokesperson Nupur Sharma
दुनिया में एक नाम की इस समय सबसे ज्यादा चर्चा हो रही है और वो नाम है नुपुर शर्मा का।
Nupur
had made a derogatory remark against Prophet Muhammad on national television.
पैगंबर मोहम्मद पर दिए आपत्तिजनक बयान।
And another BJP leader, Naveen Jindal, made similar remarks through his tweet a few days later. This led to mass protests all over the country, especially in northern India. Similar protests were happening in Prayagraj, where communal tensions were rising each minute.
इलाहाबाद शहर में एक मीडिया में कहें या फेसबुक पर कहें या व्हाट्सएप पर कहें कि एक मैसेज चल रहा था जिसका उसमें लिखा था भारत बंद का आह्वान किया जा रहा था 9 जून को। और उस भारत बंद का मैसेज हमको भी किसी ने अननोन नंबर से भेजा था और उसके लिए एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन कुछ थोड़ा सा परेशान सा दिखा हमको, क्योंकि एक दिन पहले एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ने कोई मीटिंग करी थी कोतवाली में, तो कुछ लोग उसमें बुलाए गए थे बातचीत करने गरज से, कुछ लोग गए भी थे वहाँ पर। हमको इत्तला मिली तो हमसे पूछा भी गया टेलीफोनिक, तो हमने बताया कि हमारे पास एक मैसेज आया है इस तरह का। तो उन्होंने कहा कि आप लोग का संगठन या आप लोग इस तरह की कोई चीज़ किसी एक्टिविटी में शामिल हैं। तो हमने कहा हमारे न ग्रुप में कोई ऐसा मामला है, ना हम लोग इसमें शामिल हैं, ना हमको पता है कौन लोग कर रहे हैं ये।
Look at this video now. It shows that Javed Muhammad's house was razed down with bulldozers 10 days later, on June 12th, at the orders of the Prayagraj Development Authority under the Uttar Pradesh Urban Planning and Development Act of 1973. The authorities accused him of building a house without getting the map approved by the authorities.
देखिए, अभी तक जो मास्टरमाइंड सामने आया है उसका नाम जावेद अहमद उर्फ जावेद पंप ये आदमी है,
जिसमें इस वक्त लगता है जांच करके उस नतीजे पर पहुंचना कि इसमें कौन लोग शामिल थे, किन लोगों ने पत्थर चलवाया किसी ने, कौन सा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इसमें इन्वॉल्व था, ये सब कोई जांच नहीं करी गई। और सीधा बस उन्होंने हमारे ऊपर इल्ज़ाम लगाया कि आप कॉन्स्पिरेटर थे, और कोई भी उनके पास प्रूफ नहीं था हमारे खिलाफ, किसी तरह का प्रूफ नहीं था। ना हमारी फ़ोटो कहीं वहाँ पर थी, ना हमने किसी से कोई टेलीफोनिक कहा हो, और जो मोबाइल फ़ोन था हमारा वो उन्होंने रख लिया, उसकी जांच करी, दिल्ली भेजा, तमाम देखवाया, उसमें भी कुछ नहीं मिला उनको। वरना हमारे तमाम जो केसेस हमारे ऊपर पहले 5 केस लगाकर हमको जेल में भेजा गया और फिर 3 केस और ऐड किया गया उसमें, फिर 1.5 महीने बाद NSA लगा दिया गया हमारे ऊपर। तो ये सारी जुल्म ज़्यादती क्यों हो रही थी, हम जेल में भी नहीं समझ पा रहे थे।
This had followed in other areas of Uttar Pradesh. In Saharanpur, the homes of 2 Muslim men, Muzammil and Abdul Waqar, were demolished by alleging that they partook in the same violence. This followed in Kanpur, where the house of Muhammad Ishtiyaq was demolished on similar grounds.
मुसलमानों के प्रोटेस्ट में हर बार ये कहा गया कि जो कोई भी प्रोटेस्ट हुआ जिसका ये एलिगेशन लगाया गया कि 2 गाड़ियां जल गईं या मैक्सिमम या कहीं पे स्टोन प्लेटिंग या पथराव की खबर है, लेकिन वो खबर का कोई इन्वेस्टिगेशन डिटेल रिपोर्ट आज तक नहीं आया। लेकिन उस रिपोर्ट के आने से पहले सबसे पहले काम ये किया गया कि मास लेवल पर मुसलमानों का अरेस्ट किया गया, और वो अरेस्ट करने पर वो वहाँ पे मौजूद थे नहीं थे, किधर थे, कहाँ थे, वो एक मास लेवल का अरेस्ट हुआ। और उस अरेस्ट के बाद कोई आदमी उस पूरे पुलिस की कार्रवाई पे सवाल नहीं उठा दे तो उसके पीछे पीछे बुलडोजर पहुंच रहा है।
However, this was neither the first nor the last property of Muslims demolished by various governments and authorities in India. According to the report of Amnesty International, between April and June of 2022, at least 128 properties, largely owned by Muslims, were destroyed in various states of northern India. This included 36 in Gujarat, 56 in Madhya Pradesh, 25 in Delhi, 8 in Assam, and 3 in Uttar Pradesh. In the towns of Khargone and Sendhwa in Madhya Pradesh on 10th April 2022, violence broke out between Hindus and Muslims during Ram Navami, a festival that celebrates the birth of Hindu god Ram, in whose name the Babri Masjid was also demolished. A day after this, the district administration of these towns launched mass demolitions of the Muslim properties, including their houses and shops.
दंगाइयों के लिए ऐसा नहीं होता है जैसा आप कह रहे हैं। जो लोग वो जो बंदूक से गोली चला के एसपी को घायल कर दें, आप उनसे भी जरा पूछिए कि वो किस कानून के तहत तलवारें चला देते हैं, आईसीयू में छोटे छोटे बच्चों को भर्ती कर देते हैं, निरीह लोगों पर पत्थर फेंक देते हैं। ये विकृत मानसिकता के लोग हैं।
On the same day, 10th April, violence broke out in the towns of Khambhat and Himmatnagar in Gujarat during the Ram Navami processions. On 15th April, the state administration destroyed several kiosks owned by Muslims in the area. On 16th April 2022, communal violence broke out in Jahangir Puri during the Hanuman Jayanti procession. 3 days later, the BJP state president Adesh Gupta requested the North and South Delhi Municipal Councils (NDMC) to demolish the encroachment of government land by Bangladeshi Rohingya and anti-social elements. While NDMC proceeded with demolition, it was challenged in the Supreme Court on the 20th of April by the Jamiat Ulema-e-Hind, resulting in a stay in demolition. However, NDMC violated the court's order and demolished 25 shops and makeshift carts of Muslims in Khushal Road, Jahangir Puri. On May 21, 2022, in Nagaon in Assam, a Bengali Muslim fisherman, Safiqul Islam, died in police custody at Bata Drava police station after he was arrested for arbitrary detention. Demanding action, his family protested in front of the police station. The police station was burnt down, and as a form of retribution, the houses of the accused were demolished. In Nuh, in August 2023, following the communal violence, almost 500 to 1200 building structures owned by Muslims were demolished. This included permanent shops, medical stores, and kiosks owned by Muslims. In June 2024, soon after the BJP's second term in Mandla, Madhya Pradesh, 11 homes of Muslims were demolished on the eve of Bakrid, accusing them of storing beef. In August 17, 2024, the house of a minor Muslim boy who was accused of stabbing his classmate was demolished in Udaipur, calling the structure illegal, saying it was built on the Forest Department's land. The strange fact is that the house did not even belong to the boy's family. It was a rented place where 4 other families lived. In the same month, in Chhatarpur in Madhya Pradesh, the house of the Congress leader Shehzad Ali was demolished, saying that it lacked construction permits. This happened right after the incident of stone pelting in Chhatarpur during a protest by Muslims against the remarks made by Ram Giri Maharaj about the Prophet Muhammad. Before getting into the further nuances of the practice of demolition in India, let us try to understand the concept itself. When it comes to the demolition practices in India, it can happen due to several reasons by both state and non-state actors. The first one is the demolitions often done in the garb of redevelopment and beautification plans of the authorities. In a report by Housing and Land Right Network titled Planned Dispossession, Forced Evictions and the 2010 Communal Wealth Games, it has been found that a total of 19 building structures were demolished in Delhi as part of the Commonwealth Games in 2010. 9 of them were directly demolished for construction related to the event. 9 other sites were demolished for reasons of city beautification and security prior to the games. One of the sites in Cement Godam Basti was demolished for a 5-star hotel, which was expected to open in time for the games. This had been done during the recent G20 summit when slums were cleared and hidden from public visibility. According to another report by the Housing and Land Rights Network on Forced Evictions, around 59% of the demolitions were under slum clearance encroachment, and beautification projects in the years 2022-23. We've done a very detailed and in-depth story on this topic in this video, focusing on the case of Yamuna settlements in Delhi. The second type of demolition is the targeted forms of demolition, which are often done against collectively owned structures of religious minorities, in this case, Muslims. A major example of this would be the demolition of Babri Masjid. On 6th December 1992, the 460-year-old Babri Masjid in Ayodhya was vandalized and destroyed by Hindutva mobs who claimed that an ancient Ram temple stood at the site. Even though it was not a state-sponsored eviction, the participation of the currently ruling BJP's top leaders, including L.K. Advani, Murli Manohar Joshi, Uma Bharti, Vinay Katiyar, Ashok Singhal, and former Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Kalyan Singh, were evident. The targeting of the Muslim religious spaces continued with the demolition of Akhundji Mosque in Mehrauli on 30th January 2024, Shahi Masjid in Prayagraj on January 9, 2023, and another mosque in Muzaffarnagar in November of 2022. Along with this, multiple mosques in India are facing court petitions filed by the right-wingers alleging that they were temples. This model re-emerged in Haldwani on February 8, 2024, when the municipal authorities of Haldwani demolished the Abdul Razzaq Zakaria Madrasa, also known as Malik ke Baghiche ka Madrasa, and the Maryam Mosque in Bambulpura with bulldozers, citing them as illegal structures. This attack on the religious sites of minorities as a form of targeted demolition finds a pattern around the world. In China, the burial ground of the Uyghur and the other Turkic Muslims were razed by the authorities in 2019 for building a park. Since 2017, almost 16,000 mosques have also been destroyed in Xinjiang by the Chinese authorities. The Chinese have also led the demolitions of buildings in Laranghar, one of the largest centers of Tibetan Buddhist learning, owing to overpopulation. Close by, the Burmese authorities have also been using the bulldozer to wipe out villages of Rohingya Muslims. After demolishing buildings through arson, these villages which become inhabitable are then cleared out. The third form is the use of demolition against individuals, which is more isolated in format. This was followed in the case of Javed Muhammad, labeling him as a violence perpetrator and targeting his home. This punitive form of demolition in India was started by the UP government under the Yogi Adityanath regime, who as a result was called the Bulldozer Baba.
बुलडोजर बाबा एक बुलडोजर बाबा बना दी बुलडोजर बाबा.
He got this name by continuously invoking the bulldozers to fight mafias during his election campaign in 2022. Thus, the bulldozer came to be the most popular election symbol of the year. When the bulldozer was evoked along with multiple Islamophobic speeches of Yogi, it attained religious garb.
पिछले उत्तर प्रदेश के 2022 के इलेक्शन में हमने देखा कि योगी साहब का जहाँ पे इलेक्शन का कैंपेन चल रहा होता था, वहाँ पर बुलडोजर रखे होते थे.
वहाँ देखो बुलडोजर भी खड़े हैं मेरी सभा में.
तो वो बुलडोजर और साथ में वो नारे भी लगाए जाते थे कि मुल्ला को हमने टाइट कर दिया, ये कर दिया. तो ये पूरा मॉडल जो है वो रिवेंज का मॉडल है.
He talks about how Adityanath's campaign in 2022 used bulldozer as a symbol of revenge. It was first used to crack down gangster Vikas Dubey in 2020, who was accused of killing 8 policemen, and against politician Mukhtar Ansar during that time. This transition from targeted and collective demolitions to individual and isolated demolitions is also another strategy to curb opposition. In instances where a collective structure is demolished, there is a sense of unitarian opposition. This was seen during the opposition to the Babri Masjid demolitions. However, with the atomization of the attacks on specific individuals of the community, Hindutva forces effectively nullify the formation of an opposition. This is also the strategy followed in the cases of hate crime. While it moved from communal riots to lynchings, the subjects became isolated. This does not mean that the effect on the community has decreased by any measure.
Obviously, in instances of mass communal violence, it is obviously tangible and visible that large parts of the community are affected. But what is happening with these individualized so-called lynching cases, for instance, or hate crime cases, is that the effect on the community is much more subtle and it's much more insidious.
Along with this, the people whose houses have been demolished are called criminals and culprits, their properties illegal. This has weakened any kind of opposition. Along with this, the fear of their own properties getting demolished have also held back people from resisting the bulldozer Raj. This is the same model followed by Israel also. The Israeli government demolished the homes of Palestinians who were accused of security offenses either by blowing their homes with explosives or by destroying them with bulldozers. As opposed to India, in Israel, the demolition and occupation of Palestinian properties have a legal mandate. The Regulation 119 of the Defense Emergency Regulations of 1945 permits Israeli occupationary authorities to demolish and seal buildings in the occupied territories. The families were prohibited from rebuilding any structures. These structures were, in fact, legally forfeited to the Israeli government. The Hindutva forces follow a certain plan and pattern in the demolition drives in Muslim neighborhoods. First, certain conditions are created for communal violence. Say, for example, in Jahangirpuri, a Muslim majority area, the Hanuman Jayanti procession carried swords, guns and even pistols along with blasting offensive and provocative music. This is often performed in front of masjids or mosques, a deliberate attempt at provocation. Similarly, Nuh, before the violence, the self-proclaimed cow vigilante Monu Manesar had posted a video asking Hindus to gather in huge numbers and threatening the Muslims to do whatever you can. This leads to a situation of communal tension, which goes deliberately unchecked and unrestricted by the police forces. Once the Muslims retaliate, they are labeled as criminals. Following this, the criminal profiling of these Muslims happens. Are they part of any oppositional political parties or organizations? Do they have any prior criminal cases recorded against them? Do their houses have legal sanctions? Do they run their shops on encroached lands? The questions run till they end up with a yes. But that is not where the problem arises. Even though any kind of criminal record is found, is demolition the way of punishment? Is there a legal sanction for the state mechanism to demolish people's houses within days of finding them guilty of petty crimes?
Let's take a case of somebody who has been accused of one crime and that person happens to be a Muslim. What will you do? You have a proper court procedure. So and you, without following the due procedure, they go there with a bulldozer and they demolish the house. Any XYZ, any case, if the person is a Muslim, the house is being demolished. What is going on? And this is in a way also taking the power of the court, because now you are the court, you are the judge, you are the lawyer. And there is no need for a judge to adjudicate whether the house was correctly built or not, or whether this person is actually accused of the crime or not.
Since his historic win as a Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, in March of 2022, Adityanath's model of the bulldozer has been accepted as a legitimate action against Muslims, visible from the adoption of this strategy by other Indian states including Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat and Assam. During the BJP's second term, state-sponsored targeted demolitions have been a major strategy of minority discrimination in the country, along with systematic violence that results in the loss of housing, livelihood and security. Moreover, the bulldozer has become a significant part of the Hindu nationalist agenda and a prominent symbol of Hindutva's muscular identity. During the election campaign of 2022, people flocked, especially in UP, to get bulldozers linked to their bodies. It is even seen in the packets of snacks, thus becoming a fundamental part of the Hindu populist rhetoric. The bulldozers are also a major figure in the Hindutva pop, the hate-mongering songs against Muslims calling for a Hindu nation and for the Muslims to amend their ways.
ये कौन मौलाना कहाँ से बोलता है हैदराबाद से, उसकी बहुत चिंता मत करिए, आप देखते रहिए, बकरे की अम्मा कब तक खैर मनाएंगी, बस आप देखते रहिए।
Music and DJs are also now part of the demolition process. In the demolition that happened in Ujjain in July 2023, which was executed after accusing 3 Muslim boys of spitting at a religious procession, the police were accompanied by DJ systems, which provided a Hindutva pomp to the event. The image of bulldozer and its synonymization with the Hindu pride has now become global. In a rally in New Jersey, marking India's 75th year of independence, a vehicle was displayed, styled as a bulldozer. The bulldozer are a form of curbing dissent, one very visible with the case of Afreen Fatima. Her stance as a Muslim student leader, a critique of the ruling party, and a leader in the anti-CAA protests were all forms of dissent, resistance, and opposition. Her father, Javed Muhammad, was also a vocal critique and a member of an oppositionary political organization. All of this, being Muslim, vocal, and critical, added up to his arrest and eventually the bulldozing of his home.
If you are in opposition to the state, earlier it was that, like, you might be incarcerated or your family might be incarcerated. You would be, like, for n number of years. So now they're anyway incarcerating you because my father was arrested, and then on top of that they're not just punishing the person they think is the dissenter, here my father, but also by extension people around him.
Another major aim of the demolitions were targeting of Muslim shops and businesses, thus resulting in the damage to the source of livelihood. Following the communal violence in Nuh, the state administration violently destroyed the houses and shops owned by Muslims, a visible, cruel and state-sponsored revenge against a community.
जैसे खरगोन में मुसलमानों की छोटी सी मार्केट थी, वो पूरी मार्केट गिरा दी गई। एक होटल था जो बहुत सालों से चल रहा था, वो उस पूरे होटल को गिरा दिया गया। नूह में मेडिकल कॉलेज के पास में मुसलमानों का बहुत ढेर सारे शॉप्स थी, जिसमें मेडिकल स्टोर, एक्सरे, अल्ट्रासाउंड सारे सेटअप थे, और कई साल से वो हसन खान मेवाती मेडिकल कॉलेज के कंपाउंड के बराबर में वो सारे बिजनेस इस्टेब्लिशमेंट थे, वो सारे के सारे गिरा दिए गए। कानपुर में रूपुर शर्मा के मामले में एलिगेशंस लगे, और बाबा बिरयानी जो वहाँ की सबसे प्रोमिनेंट मुसलमानों का बिजनेस सेटअप था, उसको पूरा सील कर दिया गया, और फिर उसके बाद कुछ जगहों को डेमोलिश कर दिया गया। सहारनपुर में भी यही डेमोलिशन के वाक़यात हुए। तो इस पूरे प्रोसेस में जो पहला एस्पेक्ट है कि साइकोलॉजिकली मुसलमानों को टेरराइज करने के लिए जो स्टेट टेरर का एक नया जो रूप है बुलडोज़र का, उस बुलडोज़र के तहत सबसे पहले मुसलमानों को साइकोलॉजिकली परेशान करने के लिए, डाउन करने के लिए, सेकंड ग्रेड सिटीजन बनाने के लिए बुलडोज़र का इस्तेमाल होता है। लेकिन उसका पहला और फ्रंटल अटैक जो होता है वो मुसलमानों के कॉमर्शियल सेटअप पर होता है।
Apart from that, in all the demolitions which were a result of communal violences between Hindus and Muslims, only the properties of Muslims were subjected to demolition. After the violences related to Ram Navami processions in Sendhwa and Khargone, at least 332 properties have been demolished in the state of Madhya Pradesh. Among these, 223 belonged to Muslims. This is a form of targeted violence, where one community pays the price. Along with this is a collective extrajudicial violence targeted at Muslims, with state authorities, including the state's home minister, openly calling Muslims perpetrators and the demolition as a deliverance of justice. While the bulldozer became a show of pride and power of Hindutva aggression, it became a tool for instilling a collective fear among the community. Muslims are forced to live in the constant fear of their houses getting drilled and their families becoming homeless.
To lose something as close to you as your own home is a massive loss, is a huge loss. And you really can't put words to it of how you feel about it, or how does it impact you psychologically or emotionally. In terms of, like, my family, I see the shift in their behaviors. I see how when there's a loud knock on the door, how my mother's, like, she would get concerned, who is it? or like, if there's a policeman crossing in front of wherever we're living right now, we'd get more concerned. So those kind of things are there.
But before getting into the discussion of the legal aspects of the demolition, let us talk a little bit about how these structures came to be deemed as illegal in the first place. When it comes to the demolition of Javed Mohammad's house, the argument of it being illegal was overturned as they were paying house taxes and water bills for the past 20 years. However, what about the demolitions that took place in Jahangirpuri, Khargon and Khambhat, where whole neighborhoods and shops were subjected to demolition? How are structures that are called illegal being built there in the first place? How did these structures come to the attention of the authorities after the occurrence of violence? How did only the structures of one specific community become illegal while the others are also built on the same area? Let's analyze these questions.
Delhi is this one state where you have unauthorized colonies. And these unauthorized colonies, it started in 2006 when the sealing drive was going on. And then the courts made a point that you have to remove everybody. And how many people are residing? Maybe over 1 crore, but the statistic says around 50 to 70 lakh, etc. But I believe maybe over 1 crore people stay in Delhi in unauthorized colonies or in slums and unregistered slums, etc. So the government came with a protection for these unauthorized colonies known as the NCT of Delhi Protection Act. And now that protection has been extended till 2026. Why I'm mentioning it is because if you really go by what is legal and illegal, so these structures are not illegal, but some of the houses are constructed in a way that do not fit into your building plans maybe, or these structures were made at that time which do not align with really your master plan of the city. But it's not the failure of the people, it's actually the failure of the government and the agencies like DDA or the agencies like corporations which have failed to meet the housing need and housing demand of the people.
Therefore, demolitions have a wider socio-economic narrative. Marginalized populations are forced to live in encroached land due to multiple factors. As long as the government allows it, they can have the shelter or even expand it. But once a disagreement takes place, the bulldozer emerges. Let's move ahead the illegality of these demolitions and discuss the illegal nature of demolitions itself. There are certain laws and guidelines set up by various legal bodies when it finally comes to these demolitions and evictions. But as before, these are also not followed during the procedure.
See, usually whenever there is a demolition that is to take place, the legal safeguards are one, statutory safeguards, and second, of course, constitutional rights of the people. Because demolition is not just any legal case, but rather it's going to affect the lives of so many people. If it is a mass demolition or either if it is an eviction of somebody from their house. So the number one safeguard which is the statutory safeguard and also a fundamental right, that you must give a notice to the person that we are going to demolish your house, or we are going to evict you from this land where you have been staying.
One important thing to notice here is the time when the notice was being issued. According to the Delhi Urban Shelter Improvement Board, at least 15 days time should be given to the people being evicted so that they fairly contest their claims. However, in the punitive demolitions in India, this was not followed. Section 30 of the Delhi Development Act 1957 says that the structures may be demolished only when the owner is given at least 5 days notice to comply, with an order directing the removal of the structure. Along with this, other mechanisms by state and other bodies provide directions in situations of evictions. Section 343 of the Delhi Municipal Corporation Act 1957 states a reasonable opportunity of hearing must be given to show why the municipal commissioner must not issue a demolition order. Along with this, compensation or resettlement opportunities are one of the mandatory safeguards against demolitions and evictions. However, this has not been fulfilled in the case of targeted demolitions in India.
That is done in a most gruesome manner, it is done in the most inhumane manner, and not in a single case a rehabilitation was done. Not a single case, not a single person, and I can say it on record, who was evicted in these demolitions that were done last year, not a single person was rehabilitated or resettled.
When it comes to the legal aspect of demolition, there has been certain updates which happened in the last 3 months. First came the Supreme Court's observation on 2nd September 2024. The Supreme Court bench led by B.R. Gavai and K.V. Vishwanathan questioned the practice of punitive demolitions and proposed to frame pan-India guidelines on the same. Subsequently, on November 13, 2024, the same bench issued binding directives on the petition filed by Jamiat Ulema-e-Hind and some other parties.
Supreme Court has made it very clear that you cannot demolish houses just because someone is accused of a certain crime or even if they are convicted. They have also talked about collective punishment. They have said that even if a person, say X, is responsible for some crime, you cannot demolish their house, thereby punishing X's family, their parents, their grandparents and all. So, and the Supreme Court has also, most importantly, pointed out that you cannot be selective about your demolitions.
The bench stated that the demolitions often had a communal character, and this was violation of the rule of law, which was a part of the basic structure of the Constitution.
The law as it stands today and as it stood even before this judgment was very clear that before demolition you have to give a notice, there has to be adjudication of encroachment, the person whose property is to be demolished is to be heard, and he was also given an opportunity to file an appeal. And demolition, and this is what the Supreme Court has said in the judgment also, has to be the last recourse. There is something called compounding in the law. If one can impose fine, or if, like for example, say the garage is the encroachment, not the complete house. So you remove that garage or you remove that balcony instead of demolishing the whole house.
Along with this, the court also ordered that the violation of these directives would invite contempt action against the responsible officials. However, a multiplicity of such measures and guidelines already exists. The real question is, are they put to practice? How would the judiciary ensure that the guidelines are followed? How would it ensure justice for hundreds of people whose homes have already been ransacked in the garb of punitive measures? A month after the guidelines came from the Supreme Court, anti-encroachment drives and subsequent demolitions happened in Sambhal, following the communal violence which happened on November 24. The violence occurred as a petition was filed in the District and Sessions Court, Sambhal, on November 19, alleging that the 16th century Jama Masjid in Sambhal was built at the site of an ancient temple. A notice was also issued to the Samajwadi Party MP Ziaur Rahman Barq for allegedly constructing a house without proper approval. On 21st of December, the stairs of his house were demolished by the Sambhal Municipal Board, stating that they were illegally constructed. He was also charged a fine of Rs 1.9 crores for an alleged power theft. Therefore, the question still remains, is the current proposition of the Supreme Court sufficient to put an end to punitive and targeted demolitions in the country? And what about the previous cases of demolition?
For example, our case, we filed a case against the demolition in June 2022 itself, and to this date, apart from the bare minimum formality of the counter and the rejoinder to our petition, there's not been a single hearing. For the past 2 years, not a single hearing. Allahabad High Court does not consider it as an issue that should be taken up.